adventurers, and welcome back to Underdark Cellars. Today we're doing something fun. We are reviewing the unofficial Disney Parks cookbook by Ashley Craft. I have a couple thoughts already regarding this cookbook and maybe its target audience, but I want to try some of the recipes out for myself before I issue a final judgment. So if you are interested in finding out if this cookbook is worth your money, stay tuned. Let's get started. So first on the list, we are making a marinade for some beef. Combine some teriyaki sauce, some soy sauce, rice vinegar, and then some red wine vinegar, along with our garlic powder, our finely minced fresh ginger, and our brown sugar. Oh no, don't splash, please, thank you. We are going to just whisk this together until it's brought to a boil. Additionally, I have some cornstarch and water, 3 tablespoons of each, which I am going to combine to make a slurry. So half of this is going to be a marinade, half of this is going to be used as sauce. I'm gonna remove this from the heat. I'm gonna add in this cornstarch slurry. This is pretty on par with other sauces I've done before. Hopefully this will allow it to thicken up a little bit. We're gonna cool this while we work on some other stuff. So we're just gonna set this aside. So we are back. Our sauce, it's been 20 minutes. It hasn't really thickened, so that's something to take note of. It wants us to set about half of it aside, and then to this, we're going to add our kebab beef. I'm just gonna give this a little toss. We are going to cover this and let this sit overnight. Okay, dip a folded paper towel in olive oil and hold the tongs to grease the grill. I'm just gonna use this avocado oil spray because I don't want to do that. So, let's take a look at these guys, the ones that are done. Here's the thing, it says set aside the extra sauce. I assume this means for dipping. I assume. There's no instructions on what to do with it after. Let's find this one. It's low on the salty side. I feel like the vinegar comes through in a good way. I would hope so, considering there's half a cup of rice vinegar in here. Let's try it with the sauce though. Overall, I felt like this recipe was fine, but it wasn't anything special. I do think it tasted similar to that of the Bengal beef skewers in the parks, but I will say that I think the recipe could be tweaked a bit. I think the sauce could have been a little thicker, and ultimately, I'm just gonna give this a C. It was pretty average. I think if you make these at home, it'll be fun, but it's nothing that was over the top exciting. We are now moving on to the gray stuff. So I need 12 chocolate sandwich cookies. We're gonna set this aside now and work on the rest of the filling for the gray stuff. So now we need our vanilla pudding mix, which I have here. And we need 1.5 cups of whole milk. I'm gonna whisk this together. Very yellow. Wow. We're gonna let this chill in the refrigerator for 10 minutes. Okay, it's been 10 minutes. So now we're going to add in these cookie crumbs and a tub of frozen whipped topping that is thawed. This reminds me of those Minnesota salads that aren't really salads. That lady on TikTok. I feel like I'm making an Oreo salad. Slap me in the Midwest, folks. I'm ready. We're going to stir/fold all of this in. We don't want to deflate the whipped topping too much. I mean, I feel like it's less the gray stuff and more the yellow stuff.
You're gonna look at me and you're gonna tell me that I'm wrong? Am I wrong?
Now that this is mixed, we're gonna let this chill for a little bit. For the other part of the gray stuff Gateau, we're working on a red velvet cake cupcakes. Now, the recipe calls for mini muffins, but I don't have a mini muffin pan, and I'm not going to buy a mini muffin pan, so we're gonna make these regular cupcake sized and just make them a little larger, if that makes sense. For this, we will need our red velvet cake mix, a cup of water, half a cup of vegetable oil, and 3 eggs, which are approximately $1 million. We're just gonna mix this up. I think that this cookbook is oriented towards busy people with families who just want a little bit of nostalgia. I think if you're going for more of like a sophisticated take on these, because so many of these recipes include things that are pre-made, which is fine. It's fine. If you are a busy family or if you're a busy person in general. I mean, I could see this being like a really fun way to do like a kid's Disney birthday party. You don't want to, find all of the, recipes online. Also, who has the money to go to Disneyland right now? No, absolutely cannot afford to go to Disneyland right now. It's insane. We're gonna pop these in the oven for about 16 minutes. I don't need these in here. So we're gonna pull these out. While those are cooking, let's chit chat about this gray stuffed Gateau. Now, I'm looking at the shortbread recipe for this cookie that goes underneath it, and the shortbread recipe looks solid. I personally add cornstarch to my shortbread because I feel like it makes it a little bit crispier. Pretty simple. It's like a 1-to-2 ratio butter to flour. That's basically it. I am at the end of my rope. There's too many dishes, and I'm out of dishes. So before I lose my mind completely, because I'm feeling the walls closing in, I'm going to just make those off screen. You've seen my recipe in the Bridgerton video. This is the one here. Yeah, so that's what's happening. And we'll go from there. I went ahead and took some of the shortbread, put that on the bottom. Then the instructions are to put the inverted cupcake on here, and then a raspberry, and then we're just gonna, oh no, this does not pipe well. Okay, a few thoughts. One, I still think this is yellow. I don't think it's gray. It photographed yellow, and you know what? I'm just gonna leave that here. Second, I think that independently the flavors are fine. The shortbread, red velvet, the raspberry, and the whipped pudding topping thing, the actual gray stuff, I think independently are all fine. I think together it's a little much. I also think that there's not a lot tying it together. You taste each component independently. Granted, some of you might not mind that, but I felt that they didn't super work well together. I felt that the raspberry could have been used a little bit more, whether we put some raspberry preserves in the cupcake or whatever. It just needed to be integrated a little more. I also think that the gray stuff itself was super sweet, and I think the guilty party in that mix is the whipped topping. If you're trying to avoid oils, this is not for you. I would personally recommend substituting that out with whipped cream itself, or making your own whipped cream and then just cutting back on the amount of sugar that it requires. Overall, this gets a D+. We are going to be working on the cheeseburger steam pods from Walt Disney World. For this, I'm going to make the dough. We've got 2 cups of all-purpose flour. I can't find my dough hook attachment, so this is what we are going to have to use. Yeah, it's a pedal attachment. No, I know it's not the same thing. A 1/2 teaspoon active dry yeast. And a cup of warm water, she says, heated to 110 degrees. We're gonna combine this in a stand mixer for about 5 minutes. Transfer you. We're gonna cover this with specifically plastic wrap and let this rise in a warm place until doubled in size. Okay, now that I had some time to do dishes and things are done, we're gonna continue on with these cheeseburger steam pods. I'm going to heat oil about a tablespoon. Good to go. We're gonna cook this for about 2 minutes, probably just to soften this up. I'm gonna add in salt and some pepper. Add in our pound of ground beef. We need to cook this until the beef is no longer pink. While this is cooking, we're gonna mix together a tablespoon of ketchup and a tablespoon of mustard. Just gonna mix this together with a fork. We're going to remove this from the heat and drain this because there's a bit of grease we need to get rid of. This has been drained. Now we're going to add in our ketchup and mustard. That's it. That is it. Interesting. I just smell mustard. Flour this surface. Cut off a golf ball sized piece of dough. Cut off a golf ball sized piece of dough. This is not a standard unit of measurement I'm familiar with. I'm going to assume that this means 12 pieces. I don't know. Is this a golf ball? How big is a golf ball? I feel like this is too big, I think. I'm going to roll this out. So let's roll this out with a pin, but I feel like this dough is soft enough that I can. How big is this supposed to be? You know what? Well, if I know. I also need to bring water to a boil. Things are going well. Thanks for asking. But how large are these supposed to get rolled out to? Is this large enough? I'm gonna assume no. One. Around. That is a miss. That one. That's okay. We're gonna set a timer for how long? 15 minutes? Take a look at these cheeseburger steam pods. So my final thoughts on these cheeseburger bao, because these are bao. You can say steamed pods, but these are functionally bao. I think that the texture of the bun was great. I think that it was pretty close to an authentic bao. I will say that the filling I didn't super love. I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it. It was just kind of meh. It passed, you know. A couple tweaks I would make to the filling. I would beef up the seasonings a little bit. The salt and pepper that were included in the recipe weren't a lot, and so when we remove the grease, some of that seasoning kind of gets locked into the grease, and so when you remove the grease, you remove some of that seasoning, so it kind of just felt flat on my taste buds. Also, there was so much mustard. I feel like the ketchup to mustard ratio was a little off. In the Animal Kingdom version of this, they have pickles in there. They were not included in this. I think that would have been better if you're trying to get stuck on park accuracy. I think maybe blending the onions would have led to a smoother texture inside the bao. It kind of, my bite the bites weren't very cohesive. I think also maybe doubling up on the garlic. And then this is just a personal thing, but I don't see the point in paying a surplus for shredded cheese when you can just buy a block of cheese and shred it yourself. Yeah, it takes a little extra time, but it melts better, and I feel like the shredded cheese didn't do well. So this one gets a B-. So I think the last thing to discuss is really rather if I recommend this cookbook to you or not. I think if you are a really experienced cook with a fully stocked kitchen and you have all of the equipment you need, you can probably figure out how to do a cheeseburger bao without having to rely on this cookbook. But I think where this really shines is for the families or individuals who really cherish the nostalgia and remember their time at the parks really fondly and want to create those recipes at home. I think that is who this recipe book is for. I think Ashley did a pretty good job at conveying the park tastes into your home kitchen. I will say I think some of the recipes did not need to be included. Okay, so there's a recipe for s'mores, but it's, as you know, if you're an American, you've had the quintessential s'more. It's graham cracker, marshmallow, and chocolate. If you are trying to figure out how to make salted popcorn, that is something that also culturally in the US we just kind of know how to do. There was a good amount of the book that was dedicated to just the kitchen equipment that you need, which personally I found to be unnecessary, but that's because I already own the majority of that equipment. I will say the exception to that was that mini muffin pan. I do think that this cookbook needed a couple improvements in terms of instructions. I think specifically for the bao, the golf ball is not a unit of measurement. I know I'm really being picky here, but I think it's important because a lot of us need, I can visualize an inch. I can visualize an inch and a half, but I cannot visualize a golf ball, which after Googling is about a little over an inch and a half. But I also think that this book fell a little short in terms of its photography stuff. There's a recipe for this blueberry mousse. I'll put a photo in here, and it calls for this blueberry glaze, but the glaze is not photographed. I personally, and this is something I've always felt pretty strongly about, I personally feel that if you're going to put it in the book, it needs to be photographed for people to see, to understand, and to have kind of a guideline of how theirs should turn out. So I think that all being said, would I recommend this to a Disney fan, to a family who, you know, wants to do some stuff? Yeah, I would. It's not going to be at the top of my list, but I would. Yeah, I think overall this would be a good purchase for you if that's something that you find really important. So that brings us to the end of the episode. If you liked what you saw, smash that like button. If you have comments, questions, suggestions, drop those down below. If there's another cookbook that you would like me to review, name that too. I'm happy to do them. If you are not subscribed, subscribe. Ring the bell for notifications so you are the first to know when new videos go live. Share this video with someone who you think needs to learn the truth about if this unofficial Disney Parks cookbook is worth your buck. And I think, is that it? Yeah, I think that's it. So adventurers, as always, take care of yourselves. Life is crazy in 2025. January was the longest year and a half of my life, and February is turning out to be the second longest year and a half of my life. And then do something nice for someone else. We're all struggling out there. We're all struggling out there, and we need out there, and we all need a little bit of kindness. So that said, I will see you next time. Take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.